Perfect. All right. All right. Thank you everyone for joining online in this club umpire education session. So, like I said, tonight we will be speaking to some vision. We'll also provide some concepts and some slides. All of this will be sent out as a recording post meeting. The slides won't be sent out as PDFs because of the large clips that are embedded within the presentation. It'll go out as a recording. So just as an introduction, hello, hi everyone. My name's Leigh Buwalda. I'm the recruitment and retention lead for AFL Victoria for community umpiring. So what does that mean? Currently at the minute, it basically means everything. Normally there are two positions within AFL Victoria that does service umpiring. My role, the core of it is recruitment and retention programs. So I work with community umpiring groups to manage and assist them build their numbers. So creating new pathways into the umpiring groups, school programs, club programs, and then retention pieces. So looking at making sure that umpiring groups has the best possible environments. So providing resources and funding to keep working on the environments within umpiring groups. There's then an offsider, which will commence in the next fortnight, who's an education and support lead. His name's Michael Wilcox, and he provides the supporting arm, which would run these types of sessions. So educations with leagues, with umpiring groups to assist with the education of umpires in a nutshell. I'm also joined online by South Metro Junior Umpiring Academy manager Doug Haworth. Doug, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, g'day everyone. Thanks for having me on as well. My role is down at the South Metro Junior Football League, and it's just servicing the umpiring operations there. And just got off a club volunteer umpire session, but our program is probably a little bit different to what you're all doing here. But I've heard a lot about the club volunteer umpires in the regional areas and the lifeblood of getting community football going. So, I'm an umpire myself, and I've got a massive appreciation for how challenging it is, but it's also one of the best challenges, and it can be a hell of a lot of fun at the same time too. So, looking forward to the session.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. And not to undersell yourself, Doug is a current VFL listed field umpire, so he's on for all the technical questions. All right, so purpose of today, go through some education and ideally upskill you all or anyone who's watching this recording to have the best experience while volunteering umpiring as possible. We know that it can be a bit of a thankless job, and some of us can be tapped on the shoulder quite late. So really, we just want to make sure that you're educated and can have fun with it and ideally enjoy the experience, because umpiring, there's a large portion of us that do it, and there's a large portion of us that enjoy it. So hopefully through this session, we can help build on your knowledge of umpiring. The session overview will go through the role of an umpire. We won't go that. I'm pretty sure most in the room would be aware of that, but we'll go through that. Positioning, communication, to umpire, positioning, player protection, free kicks, probably the most important free kicks that we pay, as well as match management and report process. We won't do on-field skill drills, clearly. All right. So the role of a field umpire is to manage the game. And for those that have already started umpiring, the biggest thing for us is really creating a safe and enjoyment in experience for players. That's what we want to do. Players register to have fun. So therefore, we want to make sure the game is played as a sense that people aren't getting hit. We're not having fights. We play consistent rules, but more importantly, we're playing the player safety free kicks, which we'll touch on in a little bit later. Obviously, an understanding of the rules is important, and field umpires need to make sure that we position ourselves away from contests. So again, ideally, I always using the analogy that if you walk up to a wall, you can only see what's directly in front of you. Where if you take 5-10 meters back, periphery vision increases, and therefore, unfortunately, it does mean that field umpires need to get on their bike, because the further you're away from the contest, the more you'll actually see, and also have the ability to maneuver yourself around and get the different angles, which is also really critical. Okay, Doug, so I'll get you just to chat through this slide here. I'll let it roll through as we're looking at what the AFL umpire is doing there.
Absolutely. So taking you through from the start, they've got the ball up and you can see that the umpire's backed out. You can also notice there's a bit of a trail that the umpire's leaving, and you can see that how much movement that there is going on. But essentially the way that pattern is, or if you can call it that, is that umpires constantly trying to adjust to get their distance from the play, to try and get their to the side-on position to each contest, because that's going to enable us to see what's going on from an accurate decision-making position. And as you can see there, it gets us a good look at that situation too. So if we're side on, we can see the things that are coming in from the front, we can see the pushes in the back, and then we can see anything from the side too. And it allows us to be in that optimal spot for player protection free kicks too as well. So as you can see, that last point there, the majority of the free kicks are in the contest for the ball. So yeah, just adjusting around as the play moves towards them, the umpire's reacting, and you can see where that sort of pause at the moment. The umpire sort of turns and works back inside. We're not going to be players that are running forward, so we can just be a bit smart, cut back in on the inside, and then adjust as well, as you can see there. So he's maintained that distance really well, and then not panicking as well to try and get to a spot, and then just constantly adjusting and moving. Do you want me to keep going with communication?
I'm just letting the text come up. Sorry, it's built in a video, so I'm better off just sort of waiting for it. Right, so, yep, Doug, far away. 3 C's.
Yeah, awesome. So 3 C's: clear, concise, and consistent communication. Communication, it's such a valued part of what makes a great umpire stand out from the good umpires. First thing being clear, knowing what you're talking about, so knowing the laws of the game, how they're applied as well, is a big part of helping you be clear in the message that you're delivering. Being concise. We don't want to engage in conversations with players. If you listen to what the AFL umpires say over their mics in AFL games, you'll hardly ever hear them engage in conversations. Even for an example, it's maybe not the best example, but Ray Chamberlain was on the front bar a couple of weeks ago, and there's one where a Carlton player reckons he got a hand of the football or something like that, and then Ray just goes, "I reckon you didn't." It's concise. It's maybe not the best example, but it's an example of just concise communication is very effective as well. And then consistent too, making sure that it's a consistent message that we're saying. We're not changing things up as well each time we say something. So, for example, we're not going, "Oh, yeah, you pushed him in the back, that one there," and then we're saying, "Oh, there was, changing the rule up and going, oh, it wasn't really a push, but I'm still paying a free kick," that sort of thing. Just consistency with the message. So clear, concise, consistent. Really good example of how we want to do this in particular for a practical sense. When we're paying free kicks, all we need to do, blow our whistle, and then communicate the free kick and the team. So, for example, high contact Gippsland, as just a very easy example, and that's all we need to do. We don't need to get caught into, "Yeah, you ducked into this," or anything like that. If a player wants to come up and try and ask us why we paid that, if the game's still going, my favourite line is, "Let's come back to it." They're either going to forget about it, or they're going to come back to it later when you've had the time to keep going and it's a bit of a break. And that's when you can just go, "I paid high contact because I saw that the initial contact was above the shoulders," and that's all you need to do. And nice and simple. cut the conversation short because you don't want to get involved into a debate or anything like that, and then you can move on to your next contest.
Now, Doug, a question I have as a boundary umpire: how often and what's an appropriate use of play on? Because you see some umpires, and I've heard feedback that all they're doing is trying to take flight because their arms are consistently going up, play on, play on, play on. What's an appropriate amount, or when are we actually required play on? Is it every single instance where there could have been a free kick, or are there just is there an ability to be a bit more concise and more efficient or sparing in the use of play on?
Yeah, good question, and it also made me think of another point too. But play on again. So you can see umpires play on, and yeah, and like Leigh said, we're trying to take flight. We don't need to be doing that at all. Again, it's hard enough to be an umpire running around blowing a whistle as it is. Let's save our breath. Let's save our energy. Really clear and obvious examples of when we need to call play on is if the ball is touched off the boot after a kick, touched play on, or if it's smothered as well, we can call touch play on. Not if the kick's not traveling 15 meters, we can make that call early, call and play on. Or otherwise, really, if there's just an example that we feel as an umpire might, I guess, be beneficial to the game in terms of trying to think about it for community football. It's certainly not every single occasion that there's a tackle, that sort of thing. It's if there's a tackle where it could have been holding the ball, for example, but a player gets a handball. We don't need to go, got the hand to play on. We just need to say play on. And that's part of that clear and concise communication. Keep it simple, play on. Less is better in this situation, but it's definitely not every single act of play as we move forward. And then just on communication too, the really important thing to be able to communicate clearly with your other umpires as well. For example, if there's a throw-in or a goal, we need to signal to those other umpires, all clear goal, or throw the ball in if that's what we've got to. It looks like there's a raised hand.
Yeah, just a question on communication, because I just umpired my first game in round one this year in the Rezzies, and there was a time where one situation I blew the whistle for a free that after I blew the whistle I knew that was probably the wrong call, but I'd already blown it, so I was like, what do I do? So I paid it anyway, and it is what it is. And the other one was when a bloke, it looked like he'd taken the mark, it was a bit presumptuous, and I blew the whistle, and then as he went for the second bite, he dropped it. What would you do in that situation?
So I think the first thing that I'm sort of hearing there, the learning for me for that would be just take that extra half a second or second to just process what's going on in front. And, again, especially when we're new to and jumping into reserves level of football, sometimes we've got this thing in our head where we need to be, the quicker the better. It's certainly not the case. We've got a lot more time than we think we have when we're officiating. But in that case as well, you've blown the whistle for something and just sell it. You think like you're an auctioneer. You've got to sell the worst looking property on the block, but you've got to earn your commission with this. You've got to go, I've seen this, so, it's high contact. Oh, maybe it wasn't. No, I believe you got him high above the shoulder there. Free kick, thank you. Ball straight back to them. Or, he didn't grab that. I believe that he held that on for long enough. There's your mark, thank you. Or that sort of thing. So just sell it, fake it till you make it, that sort of thing. But otherwise, preventing that, just think that you've got a bit more time than you actually really have.
Because there's nothing worse than sort of that awkward situation. We've probably all seen it where it'll blow it and then just go play on. Because as soon as you've blown that whistle, you've stopped the game. So that's where you've just got to, whatever you've seen in the first instance, as Doug said there, you've just got to sell it and back yourself in. That's where the club umpire piece, we hope that players and officials understand that if we're learning the caper, they will be understanding in the majority, providing, you're not doing it every single decision on the way through.
Yep.
If you have a clear one as well, where you, just for marks, you blow the whistle too early and it's a very, very clear sort of mark, you can play on and just cancel the mark and go play on straight away. That is something you can do. But otherwise, if it's close enough, just back yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. So I think there would normally be some audio with this clip, but we might not have it. But essentially, you can see here that there's a few passages of play. The umpire's not really calling play on, that sort of thing. And with the audio, if there was some, it wouldn't. It's pretty much the ball up or the bounce, and then it's pretty silent, just lots of moving around. And then when it gets to that mark of the free kick, just the whistle's blown really strong, and then just a clear verbal instruction to the players. And then, we're projecting our voice in a firm way. We're not screaming at players. But for example, at the bottom, like we said there, it just says all we need to communicate when we're paying a free kick is the free kick and team. So when we blow that whistle, making sure that we blow it strong and we blow it long so everyone can hear it.
Yeah, apologies if that's not coming through. So it's not coming through your end, Doug?
Nah.
No, okay. I can hear it, so I thought it was working. But that's okay. We covered off the points there.
But yeah, even in that contest, we wouldn't need to call play on or anything there. We just let it unfold. Less is better. The more we talk, the more our voice ends up becoming white noise to the players.
Andy, far away.
Yep. Sorry, I'm just going to be that question guy tonight.
It's all right. We like it.
Another situation I thought about when the ball came flying out of a pack off the boot and there was hands everywhere, but no one touched it. I yelled out, "I'll pay the mark," because the players around the contest might not have known whether it was touched or not. Is that extraneous? Is that worthwhile actually saying, or is that just unnecessary?
Look, the short answer is no, it's not necessary. It's only really, only really need to say something if it's not going to be a mark. And then every other time we don't need to say anything. Look, again, it's reserves or community football. If it's going to help, I can understand it being something there, but I guess don't try and make a habit of saying all these little phrases here and there. If you want to get rid of it, there's going to be no harm with it. You just pay the mark, and if anyone goes, "Oh, but that was touched off the boot," or whatever, I didn't call anything.
Yeah,
I didn't call anything to say it wasn't. So
because there was hands everywhere, and a bloke jumped across the front, looked like he might have nearly got a smother on it, but he didn't touch it. So that was why I said. But I just wasn't sure. It's a 1%, but I just wasn't sure in the future if it's even worth it.
No, absolutely. It's a great question too. But yeah, we don't need to say it. There's so many other times in a game where it'll be a kick and we don't say it. So it's just consistent with that, I guess. But great point, though. I see where you're coming from for sure.
Okay. Probably gets back to the approach is what is most repeatable. And if you set yourself up to have to say sort of everything all the contests through, you're going to end up taxing yourself out of it. So the more concise, the more repeatable our communication is in terms of consistency, the better it'll be. And yeah, the more fat you can trim in terms of stuff you have to call out and focus, the better it'll be. Doug, I'll speak to this one. So,
yep.
2-umpire system. Now, ideally, if we are club umpiring, we are running in at least a 2-umpire system. If you are running a 1-umpire, my hope is that it's only under 12s or below. If you are running 2 out, you really want to make use of 2 umpires. And the whole purpose of having 2 umpires is not the old school, let's just split the ground in half. I'll do this half, you do that half. Really, we want to work on the 45 with each other. So what that means, and we'll have some diagrams in a minute, is that you've got 2 sets of eyes on each contest. If the ball is around 50 or 40 metres out from goal, you'll actually have 1 umpire that's in the pocket looking at the goal square and another umpire who's actually focusing on the set shot or the contest at the top of the arc. So therefore, you've got someone who is down ground and able to hand over to. And that's the difference of having, right, if you draw that imaginary line half and half, you've got an umpire in the centre circle, you've got an umpire 40 out that has to look at the contest in the goal square and also the contest at the 50, you're going to miss a lot. And it actually, while you think you're being economical, you're really not. You're actually making life a lot more difficult for yourself. So we really want to make sure we've got those two sets of eyes, as we said, and go as a team. Like I said off the top, that umpiring can be fun, and we do actually work as a team, and you'll get more enjoyment that, if you can back your friend in and say, yep, I'll take this contest, or if you get into the real technical stuff where you get tapped through and you're able to change control of play, and even just simply calling yours and mine around contests is a big thing and can make you feel less isolated out there, and a lot stronger as a team. So this is the start, and look, these are some really basic ones around start of a game positioning. So start of a game or after a goal, we've obviously got one field umpire that's sitting here opposite the centre circle. They're the one that's going to ball it up. The other ref over there is then the second umpire. Now, the reason that they are standing where they are is that once this field umpire goes in and balls the ball up, they're effectively blind to any of the contest that happens outside of what's in the ruck. So while the umpire is going in, balling the ball up, and then they back out, this umpire is in real control of what happens. So if there's a hold, if there's a high, if there's any other incidents that happens during the ball up, that umpire can pay that. Whereas if they're sitting, in the 50 arc or anywhere else, they're really blind to being able to see that. And then this position here, so the F to the right of screen would be the umpire that then tracks into that 50. If the ball goes down there, they're the one that would then get in position in that pocket to look at the goal square. The F that has the ball would then maintain control of the ball until it sort of got to about the 50-metre arc or 40 metres out, and then they would hand it off. Conversely, if the ball goes left of screen, that F that has control of the ball really is responsible of play all the way up to the goal square. Once it hits 40 out, the F that's not currently involved in the centre, in the ball up, would then roam up to that goal, up to the centre square, and be able to be there to assist. So you work left to right, and whoever's got control is dictated obviously where the ball is, but from this very starting position allows us to set up who's got what and dictates how we position, how we work as a team from there. Doug, have you got anything further on that one?
Sorry, only just one little thing, really well explained, but yeah, I think another way I like to try and think of it is just you've got two of you out there, two different angles. So like Leigh sort of mentioned, it's helpful when if the ball moves down one way that the other umpire is pushing up as well. But also just thinking about kicker and catcher, where we can we cover both options? Not always will we be able to, but if you can have someone who's covering where the ball's been kicked from to where the ball could very well go to as the next contest, that's a good sort of mentality to try and follow as well if we get a bit stuck.
Perfect. And I think while we've got this graphic up, it's also probably worth covering off. Oh, Richard, far away.
G'day, guys. Just does this change when the sun's an issue? Because I noticed I've umpired a fair few games now, but I noticed that watching the senior umpires, they sort of stay in the same patterns regardless of where the sun is. Now, I have coached and now I also umpire, and it's one of those things I sort of see that whenever I'm umpiring, I make myself in a position where the sun's not going to affect my sight. Is that something that gets coached, or is that just something that you deal with on a basis of a day or something?
So in terms of, I guess, the ball up setup, you've got flexibility there. If for using this picture, for example, if the sun's at the top of the screen, there's nothing wrong with that field umpire backing out the other way, and then the field umpire who's on the corner of the square just swaps to another corner. So they're still looking behind that field umpire or looking from the front, looking back behind. However, in terms of just generally around the ground, we try not to change things up too much because it just means that we're going to get ourselves caught out in a lot of other positions as opposed to, sometimes we might need to umpire with our hand up in the air at times just so we can sort of block the sun a bit. But it's probably more more of a disadvantage if we're caught out positionally as opposed to trying to sort of maneuver around the sun a little bit. It is a bit of a pain at times, but that's where that second umpire has a bit of flexibility to adjust. So, for example, they might need to either push, for example, if the kick moves to the wing a bit more, they might need to push out sort of more down the line if it's going away from them as such, just to get another sort of view of the contest that's out of the line of the sun, or just in a position where they can still get some sort of a view that's not going to be impeded on the sun. Hopefully that sort of makes a bit of sense. But that main umpire, you try to keep it as similar as possible, though.
Does that answer, Richard?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to know whether it was coached. Like, I don't know. We just have some of the grounds locally. In the late afternoon, just some of the positioning. It makes a big difference. But I suppose for the reserves, as long as you're calling each other in, that's why we meet up. I always meet up with whoever it is. Before the game, meet their name and just say, yep, yours, Steve-o, yours, Jono, and we just change it over and just keep on the move, I suppose, and position, as you said, is about right. So
perfect. And I think the point I was about to make too will probably explain to Doug. So centre bounce, absolutely swap which way you're backing out of, because there's no use. You can shift that other umpire around, but there's two axes that we speak about in terms of field umpiring, and there's a major and minor axis, and that basically dictates where we position ourselves. And effectively, the major axis is from goal to goal. If you draw an imaginary line from G to G, that is the rope that you attach yourself to as a field umpire. Now, the reason for that is if play gets on the middle of the wing, and to Richard, your point, if you're trying to dodge the sun and you position yourself on the boundary line, centre wing, and the play gets kicked into the middle of the ground, you are in a massive issue in terms of having to get around the contest to be able to view it. So by using the major axis, which again is G to G, you always have your back to the centre of the ground as a field umpire. Really, that's what you want to try and do. So running up and down the ground with you keeping your back to the centre of the ground. Therefore, you've got the most ability to get out of the way of play and also view. So again, if you find yourself out on that centre wing and you've got your back to the boundary line, 4-umpire system, if you watch the AFL, they can do that because there's 4 of them. But if you go and watch a VFL where there's only 3, or your local groups where there might be 3 or 2 in the seniors, they'll never position themselves with the back to the boundary line. They'll always be back to the centre. The minor axis is then the bungee rope that you go out and you come back. So that's wing to wing, pocket to pocket. So you've got the rope that's going G to G. If you have to go out to mid-wing to pay a free kick, do that. But then you back along the minor back to the major, if that makes sense. And there's that cross-section there. So yeah, the rule of thumb is you really want to try and position yourself in the tram tracks from goal square to goal square. I hope that makes sense too. Doug, have you got anything further on that?
No, I love that. I love that explanation. Big fan of it.
Perfect. So we'll just show a clip here. This is the centre. This is the start of the game. So we've got one umpire. You can see the umpire down there. They've got view of the contest. You've got an umpire who's then going to ball it up. They clear out. Play goes down this way. We've actually got a free kick. You can see that umpire bottom right of screen has now got view inside the 50. And that's what we're after. Doug, I'll throw to this one. We probably can be a bit concise on this one based on what we spoke about before.
Yeah. So basically, when the football's coming out of that sort of defensive zone, end-to-end transition, as you can see, we want to essentially have that kick-catcher mentality. So we'll take it from a kick out. If it stays within that 50, we can probably work to hold on to that kick. And that second field umpire will normally start about 5 meters inside the 50. But as it starts to get a bit further out, as you can see in that sort of blue highlighted zone, any clear kick or handball, we want to look to hand off control, because our next field umpire is going to be in a really good position to be able to have a good view of that next contest. The way we do that is very clearly saying yours, and just like we've sort of discussed, get to know your other umpire before the game. Yours, Darren, yours, Jane, yours, Sarah, yours, Bob, that sort of thing. And then that's how we release control. And then, like Leigh was saying before, we're still going to sort of work up with it as it goes down. We're not going to just stand there and that's it, because we're going to be wanting to provide that second set of eyes on the contest.
Perfect. So here's just an example. We're looking at the umpire that's delegated there as red. They're taking control. We've then got the kick. We would have a call of yours. This umpire takes control. As we intercept. They're going to manage that mark there. The ball's going to be kicked back into the 50. And our mate would be sitting there waiting for that kick to come in. Right. Doug, I'll let you speak to this one.
Beautiful. So 5 for 75. What that means is essentially there's five areas of free kicks and stuff that we pay in the AFL have done that they pay, and it makes up to 75% of all the decisions that are made within the game. So that's protection of the ball player, in particular, pushing the back, high tackles, and holding. And then it's also marking contests and then holding the ball. So they're your 5 things that are really important. That, to me, that says that I've got to really be sharp on those 5 areas of officiating, because that's where most of my decisions are going to come from, essentially, which we will dive into in a moment.
So high tackles.
First one, high tackles. Now, very simple. High tackle is a tackle that is on or above the shoulder, including on top of. There's a whole bunch of other things around. Was it a shrug? Was it a drop in the knees? That sort of thing, or a duck? My advice to keep it simple is don't buy into that stuff too much. If you believe that the first initial contact was high, pay it high. If you're not sure if it was high or not, and you've got to go, was it a shrug? That sort of thing. Pay it high contact, just protect the ball player. Those sorts of ones, you're only looking for, I guess, really clear examples that the player goes from a high to a low position in terms of a ducking, or it's very clear that the first initial contact happens down here and they shrug, and it's clear that that player has, with the ball, has contributed to that tackle going from a legal to an illegal tackle. So that's a very, I guess, summarized way of high contact, but again, the theme will be, if you're not sure, just pay it. So again, just running through some of these examples, front on, as it comes back, we'll fly through this one.
Oh no, there we go.
There we go. Front on, so a lot of the time, heads down over the football with a player trying to gain possession. Pay a free kick for high contact, as long as that player who's tackling is moving. So otherwise, if they're in a stationary position, it'll be like one player runs into that stationary player. That's where we don't call high contact. However, if we're not sure, just pay it. That one is not to be confused with ducking as well. If a player's going to pick the football up, it's very unlikely for that to be a ducking situation, which is what we talk through next, which is a player elects to drop their head from a higher position. So not just this to this, it's really obvious for those ones. And now it is part of holding the ball as a prior opportunity, so they must successfully dispose of the ball, otherwise it can be holding the ball. Driving is leading with the head, moves into the tackler who is stationary or very near stationary. And again, with the drive, we look at that motion of driving in and then continuing to push that player. It's one thing to go into a stationary player and that's it. A drive has to be contact and then pushing through as well. Not one you'll see too often though, again, so don't go looking out for it. Shrug, again, a player is tackled around the shoulder area and pushes the arm up. So again, making sure it's really clear below the shoulder and they shrug that arm up. If you're not sure where the first initial contact was, and it's very close, just pay high contact. We'd rather pay a free kick than, and that might be an unwarranted one for protection as opposed to missing one. And dropping at the knees to gain, or knees or body to gain head high tackles, we're calling play on as well. But again, wanting to make sure that these examples are really, really clear. So just a few examples here that you can see. First initial contact on that one was high. So we just want to make sure that we're in good positions to be able to see that. As you can see, it's a bit hard to tell at times. And the next example here, so again, player's gone, head down over the football. Some people might think that that's stucking, but that player is just bending over to pick the football up. So contact is made high, we pay that as a free kick. And again, straight away, you'll see players try that shrugging motion at times, but straight away I look at that and I go, the initial contact was high. And we want to make sure that that free kick is paid. So again, just a couple of examples of what these shrugs will look like. Very clearly, you can see that that first contact was on the bicep, and then the player who has the ball, the Melbourne player, contributes or is responsible. Perfect, there you go. So it starts on the bicep and is responsible with that shrug. Push in the back. So essentially what the law is forceful contact into another player's back. Really good visual landmark for us. What's on the back of every player? Their number. If a player lands in another player's number and you can't see it, that's a really good indication that there's likely a push in the back free kick, like that one there. Tackle has landed and they're right on it. Forceful contact is there. Good push in the back free kick. And there's another one coming up here, and again, just that one, you know, player is looking forward, moving forward a bit, but that Sydney player comes over the back and has that forceful contact in the back, landing there. What we might say is landing in another player's number as well. Forceful contact in the back, good push in the back free kick. So again, play on. Now this one is a really good example. Again, it initially starts to look like it might be, but then the player does really well to not fall and land into the back of that other player, St Kilda. So, and that's why our positioning is really important to be able to see these sorts of things, because if we can sort of pick that one up and go, okay, they didn't land in the back, then we've done a really good job. However, if you're not sure, we'd rather you just pay that as a push in the back as opposed to trying to guess.
So that's a really good example there, because if you were coming eyes down on that contest, you would have been able to see the St Kilda's jersey number, as opposed to the previous examples where it would have been covered. Sorry, we just had the hand raised there. Nope. Gone? Okay.
Sorry, that was fat fingers on my behalf to know how I did that.
That's right. All good.
Holding. So the first thing I'll mention with that is the terminology we want to use now is holding. It's no longer holding the man, it's just holding. But again, we want to see very clear tackles of players who aren't in possession of the ball. So, you know, if there's a quick grab and it lets go and it doesn't really have any effect on that other player, normally can be okay. But this one you can see clearly the tackle is strong enough, grabs the player's Guernsey, and it impedes their opportunity to contest the football. Another one here is where they get rid of it. We're allowed to, as an umpire, give reasonable opportunity for that player who is tackling to release that their player once they've disposed of the football. However, you can see the Bulldogs player lingers with that tackle, and then the Fremantle player's clearly gotten rid of it, and the Bulldog player pulls them straight to ground. So, for an example, for play on, you can see there straight away, pause at a perfect time. You'll see that the Kangaroos player is sort of trying to fall back into it, pleading for a holding free, but the Bulldogs players actually let go. So they've done a really good job there to pick that one up as a play on. And then another example here, bit of jostling, gets rid of it, and then the North Melbourne player does it really well. As soon as they see that, the umpire's allowed a reasonable time for that player to let go of the tackle, which they have done so in a reasonable time. Frees after disposal, they're a bit of a harder one to get because of when they happen with our timing. So what we say is we want to hold our vision as an umpire, and you're about to see why. Bang. Players are very vulnerable once they've disposed of the football. They're off balance. They can't protect themselves as much as they can going into a contest when they're prepared. So we always want to try, especially if it's a big kick or handball, to hold our vision on that disposal, the player who's disposing it 1 or 2 seconds after, to see those sorts of things. So any contact sort of that's deemed unreasonable within circumstances like this bump that floors the player from Geelong, we want to make sure that we can catch those and pay that free kick. What's the threshold of when it's not a free kick? When the ball is sort of just disposed of, and it's, I guess, the law is if the ball's within 5 metres, that's sort of when it's okay. But again, it's, we're looking for that clear late disposal out, ball's more than 5 metres away, coming in late. If it affects the kick, that's very clear that it, that's within the contest as well. And we don't want to pay free kicks for that one.
And Doug, if you do see those free kicks, where's the next free kick taken?
Yeah, so all those free after disposals, you might have heard it before, paying those free kicks downfield. Around the ground, if the ball just lands wherever within the playing field, it's wherever that ball first lands. If it goes through for a behind, you can you bring it back to the spot where the player kicked the ball initially, and you can ask them, do you want to take the behind or do you want to have another kick? If it goes for a goal, we just pay advantage for a goal. And if it goes out on the full, it's whatever the greatest advantage is. So if it goes out in the full 50 metres down the field, you're taking it from down where that ball crossed the line out in the full. However, if it's sort of laterally, you can take it from where that player kicked it from.
Perfect, thank you. I'll take these ones and give your vocal cords a bit of a break because I reckon these are the ones I've looked at previously. So this is probably the most important one that we're looking at as club umpires. So rough contact, we're looking at dangerous tackles, and they're really the ones that, if in doubt, we ping them. They're not ones that, oh, geez, that's a quick slide. There we go. So dangerous tackle. Basically, everything within this Venn diagram would make up portions of what we consider being a dangerous tackle. Like I was saying before, this is not an area where we want to create a blurred line. Realistically, depending on the level of football that you are doing, Resi's football, there is an argument to go, right, well, they're men playing men or they're women playing women. They're big, they're tough, they're going to be okay. But I think as club umpires, we need to err on the side of being conservative. And the more we pay it, the better, because the more you leave grey area, the more ability you have yourself to be found out, because let's be honest, we're not all trained up as AFL umpires. AFL umpires can have more blurred lines because they receive weekly coaching. They receive a lot of feedback around that. You may not receive any coaching at all other than this session. So if you see a dangerous tackle and you think it's a dangerous tackle, just ping it, because back to our previous word around consistency, if you're consistently just going to pay them, it's a lot easier to do that rather than to create some blurred lines and set yourself up to fail, because if you see 4 contests and if you're trying to pick 1 out of 4, it's going to be a lot more challenging than if you just ping them. And realistically, we all watch enough football that we're going to have a pretty good understanding of what people would expect. Those pieces being excessive rotation, legs lifted, arms pinned, head or body in a vulnerable position. All of them are linked with force or drive or second action. So you don't need all of these 5 things. You can have 3 of them, but mostly they will have excessive force, whether it's arm related, whether it's head related, whether it's rotation, or whether it's legs lifted. Andy, fire away.
This is an actual question, not fat fingers, but
No.
I was just thinking what you were saying before about when they duck their head, they don't deserve the free for too high, so they have to dispose of the ball. What if they are getting tackled in the back and they drop their knees to draw an in the back free, but it's clearly in the back after that? Do you consider that to be staging for the in the back, or would you still pay in the back?
Doug?
I think we can think of hypotheticals till the cows come home. If player lands in someone's back, just pay it, I reckon, just to keep it as simple as you can. The game's complex as enough as it is, so whatever we can do to make it simple. I think it's a very great and fair question. But you guys, you've got 1 education session, maybe a couple of refreshers throughout the year. It's hard enough as it is already. If you were sitting in a coaching room week to week, I'd say let's look at that a bit more. But yeah, keep it simple. Player lands in another player's back, pushing the back free kick.
Because that's the old one, that if they do duck and then their head gets taken off by the hip, you're going to want to pay that, especially if they go down the ground. There's nothing worse than if the player looks to be staging and then they get their head taken off, they're out, they're concussed, and we're just leaving it as play on. At the end of the day, regardless of the decision they take to get another free kick, if they've got high contact, they've got high contact. And that's where I'm talking about in terms of blurred lines. You're only going to set yourself up to fail if you are looking for the blue and Moona. There might be one right once out of 10. You want to get it 9 out of 10 right.
Yeah, I just really don't like that as a player, because we're encouraging people to try and draw head-eye contact. But that's not your problem. That's just it's just my thinking on it.
Well, that's true. We don't really want that in the game. But I think, community football, if they want to try and do that, they're putting themselves at risk. And I think that's a coaching piece that if you do see multiples, it's probably not the time or place to do it on field, but there's probably avenues through the league to sort of, if you feel that's happening excessively, you can probably go through the league to sort of flag that, and then it can be followed up in other routes.
Just quickly to add on to that too, in terms of all the stuff around ducking and all of that, there's still an onus on the tackler to still tackle in a responsible way. You can go from high standing to low to draw that high contact, but if the tackler comes in really crude, heavy, and extremely unreasonable, you can by all means pay a free kick and just say that was that's rough conduct as opposed to high contact.
Cool. All right. In the interest of time, we will smash through the next lot through, but I think these are really important ones to go through. So from this position here, Collingwood's about to tackle Geelong. This is fine. This position's okay. Right. So now this is the one. If DeGoey held Dangerfield in this position, we're absolutely fine. This is a great example of a good tackle. We've arrested momentum. The player can't dispose of it. We're in a position to potentially play holding the ball from here. Now, this is where we're going to have a challenge. We can see that we've got a rotation. DeGoey now has a centre of gravity over Dangerfield, and Dangerfield's now a passenger in this position. Again, what we could do is DeGoey could now fall on his bum and take Dangerfield backwards with him. That would be still a safe tackle. It's this next piece where we've got DeGoey, lower centre of gravity. Dangerfield is a passenger in this piece. We've got an arm pinned. We've got momentum. Bang. We've then got contact with the ground. Dangerous tackle every day of the week. And there's the commentary there too. Okay, we've got another example, and this is probably more clear. We've got the tackler, again, got contact through the jersey. We've got a lower center of gravity. We've got the player still in possession and upright. However, we've now got a lot of excessive force as this player is using momentum on a stationary player to then sling around, bang, dangerous tackle. We've got all the pieces there. Right, so again, this is a good position for a tackle. If they held them up right here, you've got an arm pinned, they can't dispose of it. This could be potentially holding the ball. It's what they do next. Right, we're still in a good position. Again, 13 could drop their bum to the ground, take them down. It'd be no dramas at all because we would be falling down. Both players having equal momentum, both players having equal control over their bodies. However, bang, we've got a twist. This one will be the hit whiplash one in that the shoulder will make contact with the ground first and the head will be unarrested. We've got excessive force and we've got a twist. Bang, buried, dangerous tackle. Two actions. That's the real two actions one that we can see. Again, we've got a player, Zorko, lower center of gravity, brings the player down. You've got the sling action. Bang. We're paying that one. That's not a hard tackle. That is a dangerous tackle. So with this one here, we've got less of a slinging action, but you can see that Taylor Harris has full control over what the tackle is doing, and they are bringing them down with an excessive force. See that? Bang. So again, it was one of those ones that if we stopped the momentum earlier in the tackle, I'll try and go it again. So if we just go from here and bring her to the ground or even hold her, you can see that she's probably got the ability to hold her there. We're okay, but it's when we're in this position here where we continue to go through. Again, tackler hits ground first, and that can be the common piece that a lot of the time in dangerous tackles, the tackler may actually hit the ground first, but it's then the momentum, like a slingshot, that then hits the other player. Whereas if you've got equal contact, equal momentum, you're not going to have a dangerous element to it. And we've got all of those elements got. So legal tackles, again, I'll just speak through them. We had equal momentum hitting the ground there. Absolutely fine. This one here, holding up, holding up. We do have a rotation, but there's no excessive force, and we've just brought them down to the ground, and we're not in the back there because we've got the majority of the body on the side. You haven't got that plank across the back of the other player. Now, arm pinned, which is okay. We're holding up. We've got each other up now. We do have a rotation, but again, bodies hit the ground at the same time. This is probably one of those ones that, Doug, we've said in a previous session that is probably 50-50. You could probably, if we're talking junior football, we could probably play this as a borderline dangerous tackle. Senior football, it's probably one of those ones that I'd advise club umpires to consider paying. In the AFL, we're going to let this one go because we haven't got that excessive force and rotation, but it's that real borderline one. Doug, have you got anything further on this one in particular?
Nah, summed it up perfect. It's one that makes you go, or it could be either or on the side of paying it, or on the side of caution.
Because that's the one where if you let that one go, 2 minutes later, you'll have an escalation one, and then there'll be the back chat of, you didn't pay the previous one, but you paid this one, and that's how you'll get you caught. That's how you get yourself caught up in an explanation which is potentially over your skill set at this stage. Right, I reckon this is the last legal tackle we'll need to sort of see. So again, we've brought ourselves down. It's fine. It's no issues. Match management. So we'll just blitz through this one here. So match management, what we're talking about when it comes to match management is your ability to maintain control of players. And that's where we spoke about off the start. We're looking for clear communication. We're looking for clear signals, clear free kicks, consistent free kicks, but more or less that you're in control of what the players are doing and they are listening to you. You've got the players under your thumb effectively, and that's where we want to be. Not under your thumb, but at least under your control and respecting, and they've got trust in what you're paying and what you're doing. That's where we want to sit. So I'm not going to worry about these examples. So report and send off process. This is probably the one that will provide some advice tonight, but go back to your leagues around specific processes, bylaws, etc. that we want you to do. So Doug, do you want to quickly speak through the process practically, how we send off a player, how we go through a report? We won't speak on the reports, all the reports tonight, but just these steps here around how as umpires we instigate a send-off.
Definitely. So first thing is we recognise what the report is. Let's say, for example, it's striking in this case. Pay the free kick. So if it's in the head, striking high contact, and then blow time on. So that's where you see the umpire stick one hand up in the air and then blow their whistle. That essentially stops the game for us. The next thing I would do that's not here is grab the football. We do that so we've got the game in our control, and then go over and inform the player that has been reported. Let them know you have been reported for striking. Do you understand? And again, the way we deliver that's really important. We don't want to escalate the situation. We want to be really calm and in control. I would also try our best to isolate that player who has committed the reportable offence, take them away from the group. So, because again, if we leave them there and we're not really quick to manage this, it's going to blow up into something that's going to be really big and hard to manage, like a big fight. Once you've done that, write down the reported player's number and just make a note, striking what quarter it is as well. Just you might need that information later. And then informed the infringed player, if it's applicable, that you have reported the opposition player and write down their number as well, quarter location of the incident too. So you've got that information just to jog your memory because you might need to recall it later. Then when you send the player, report the player from the field, using either a yellow or a red card, my recommendation, it might depend a little bit on your league's bylaws, but show the timekeepers. We're not soccer, don't show it to the face of the player. That's just going to get them more angry and agitated. And that's the last thing you want to do to someone who's just potentially punched someone in the face. Once that player has then left the field, you can then recommence the play with the free kick from where that incident occurred, or the greatest advantage. If the ball was in another spot that was in their defence and the punch happened in the forward line, you're going to take it to where the greatest advantage was at the punch there. But again, just a reminder that different leagues will have specific rules, and make sure that you refer to them and consult your competition football operations manager or team if you need some clarification on that process or the rules.
Perfect. Country handbook will have all the examples of what is a reportable offence, what's yellow card, what's red card, etc. But I'm sure that's a resource that could be communicated out by your leagues and also potentially AFL Gippsland if we feel that there's a bit of a shortage of information there. Or any other league that's watching this. All right, so we'll just watch through this report here. So we've got the player, got the umpire, we're having the discussion, we're making note, we're writing it down. We're making note of it. And note that he hasn't been sent off because it doesn't necessarily always warrant it. So that's the session. Thank you all for staying online for the full hour, and thank you for those that will watch this as a recording as well. If you do have further follow-ups, like I said, please reach out to your either league, region, or through us at the AFL umpiring department for AFL Vic. Thank you, Doug, for jumping online. Really appreciate your feedback throughout this session. Nicole, do you want to stop the record button?